Kia ora Year 13 and Year 12. In this video, I'm going to go through the first question in the 2021 Level 3 Probability Concepts exam. So this is a question where the whole of it from Part A to Part D actually, I think, is covered by the Level 2 probability content. The hardest thing about it is making sure that you've really understood the words in the question. So before I start, I'm going to put the question onto the screen and just give you time to read through it really slowly. So pause the video and read through the whole thing, and then think about what method you're going to use to solve all of these problems. Is it going to be a Venn diagram? Is it going to be a table? Or is it going to be a tree? Okay, so here's the question, and it's about a music and dance festival and different types of ticket. All right, so we've got two types of ticket. So I'm going to tell you my thinking about why I'm going to use a tree for this question. I'm given straight up information that I've got two groups. So I could use any of the three at this point. But as I keep reading, then the next thing that I see is that for each ticket type, attendees are able to buy a child ticket if they're under 16, or they're going to be adults. So straight away, I'm thinking the two options that might work are a table, or why am I drawing a table twice? A table or a tree. But as you keep reading, you'll see that you get given some conditional probabilities, right? And by that, I mean that you get told that, first of all, 1/5 of tickets were early bird tickets. So that immediately is making me think I'm going to be doing a tree diagram, and let's see. So 1/5 were early bird. That means that the rest must be general admission. And then for these early bird tickets, 3/4 were adult tickets. So once I've read that far, I know that a table's not really going to fit with the way the information's been structured, and I'm going to be best off to do a tree diagram, and that's going to work for the whole of this question. For general admission ticket types, 2/3 of those sold were adult tickets. So we're ready now to get on with it and set that table up. And before I do that, I'm just going to read through the questions and see what's coming up. So the first bit says that the festival organisers predicted that 10% of ticket sales would be child early bird tickets. Were they correct in their prediction? That's a pretty easy tree diagram problem. Calculate the overall proportion of tickets sold that were adult tickets. That sounds like a pretty easy tree diagram problem. And then we have to work out whether it was more likely that an adult ticket sold was an early bird ticket or a general admission ticket. Again, pretty straightforward and really kind of merit level 2 content in a lot of ways. And then I'll get to part D later, and that will probably run into a second video. I'm going to go really slowly through this, and if it's too slow for you, just forward through to the parts that you need. Okay, so let's get the information onto a tree diagram. I'm going to work in fractions the whole way through. It's fine to use fractions or decimals. If you're using decimals, don't round too early. So my tree is going to look like this. I'm going to have early bird admissions here and general admissions here. And then I'm going to have adult A here and child tickets here, and the same again. So we're going to whack the probabilities on, and then we're going to multiply along the branches. So we've got 1/5 of tickets were early bird. That goes here. And that means that the rest must have been general admission. And next, we were told that 3/4 of the early bird tickets were adult tickets. So we've got 3/4 here. That means that this must be 1/4. What about for the general admission tickets? Let's see. Oh, for the general admission type tickets, 2/3 of those sold were adult tickets. So 2/3 here and 1/3 here. Now, so the next thing that I'm going to do straight up is I'm just going to multiply along the branches. So this is going to give me early bird and adult, right? And I'm using that notation. This means the intersection of two things, or and. So early bird and adult, and the probability of that happening is going to be 1/5 times 3/4. I'm multiplying fractions, so I'm times the top times the bottom, and we get 3/20. Here for E, B, and C, we get 1/20. Here we get 8/15. And here we get 4 over 15. And as I said, it's fine to turn those ones into decimals, but just, stick with about 4 decimal places if you're going to do that. So the tree's set up. Let's see what we can answer straight away. Okay, the festival organisers predicted that 10% of ticket sales would be child early bird tickets. Were they correct in their prediction? So child and early bird is here, early bird and child, so it's this number here, 1/20th, which is 5%. So no, they're not right. So let's look at what we should write down to say that. Well, the probability of early bird and child is equal to 1/20th, and we've done the working for that on the tree. So that's equal to 5%, and that's not equal to 10%, so they were wrong. Just remember, the statistics is all about presenting evidence in context, so make sure that you do write something like that. It's really, really good when you're marking to see students who are consistently using this notation of P bracket blah, blah, blah. You don't have to use that sign there. It's fine just to write and. But if you're watching this and you're getting near the end of the year and you're revising for exams, you should have done enough revision that you're pretty confident with using the correct notation at this stage. Okay, what's next? Right, calculate the overall proportion of tickets sold that were adult tickets. So there are 2 ways that you can have an adult ticket. You can have an early bird and adult ticket, or you can have a general admission and adult ticket. Right, I'll just clean this up a wee bit. So we just have to add those 2 probabilities together. And you can see that it is worth just getting the probabilities in an example like this done to start with, because all we have to do now is take this one, and we're going to add them together. So the probability of an adult ticket is equal to 3/20ths plus 8/15ths. Now at this stage, I think even I would probably go to a decimal. So whacking that into your calculator gives you 0.6833, which is so just 0.6833 to 4 dp. And if you look at the marking schedule, both of those questions, not surprisingly, are just achieved questions. If you're working with this and you're doing fractions, I'm just going to go over this for a bit of fractions revision. So we would just add those with a common denominator. The lowest common multiple of 20 and 15 is 300. So 20 times what gets me 300? 20 times 15. Do the same thing to the numerator and the denominator. So 20 times 15, and we have 3 times 15 gives me 45, right? 15 times 20 gets me to 300. So I have 8 times 20 is 160, which gives me a final answer, unsimplified, of 205 over 300. And then we can simplify that down and keep going. Okay, so actually in my working, I did it with decimals, but that's where you'd get to. When you're working with probabilities, it's one of the very few times in maths where we often are quite happy to keep the fractions unsimplified. So you're going to get a tick for that, but that to me still looks really ugly. So we'd want to be dividing through, let's see, at least by 5. See, I can't leave that alone. So 300 divided by 5 is going to give me 60 here, and 200 divided by 5 is going to give me 41. So that's a nicer answer. Okay, 2 achieved questions done, and we're already 8 minutes in. Let's see the next one. So the next question is, I think, a merit question. Was it more likely for an adult ticket sold to be an early bird ticket or a general admission ticket? Okay, so we're working with what we call conditional probability here. We're saying, given that we're looking at an adult ticket, was it early bird or was it general admission? And the way we write that is this. Given that it was an adult ticket, what's the probability that it's an early bird? To figure that out, we're looking at the probability of having an adult ticket and then the probability that we've got both the early bird and the adult ticket. And we're going to do that calculation, and then we're going to do the same thing for the general admission. Now, in this case, because there are only 2 possibilities, we can actually figure out the second one as 1 minus but I'll do the full working for it here anyway. So for the first one, the probability of it being early bird and adult, we got from our tree diagram. So that was 3/20ths, which I'll now flip into a decimal. So 0.15 divided by the probability of having an adult ticket, which we've just figured out in the question above, right? So 0.86833. And that works out to be 0.2195. So that's saying if we know we've got an adult ticket, the probability that it's an early bird one is about 22%. Now, if it's not an early bird one, it has to be a general one. So 2 ways to get this. The first way is to just do it using the formula again. And the probability of this one here is coming from my tree diagram. So it's 0.5333. So it's 8/15 divided by 0.6833. That looks really awful with the decimals and the fractions mixed together, but in practice, that's what you've got from your tree diagram at the start, and that's the number you've just worked out. So when you chuck that into your calculator, you're going to get 0.7805. But hopefully now all of you are going to notice what I'm talking about, that this one was 22%, right? And that's the probability of early bird tickets, given that it's an adult ticket. And so this probability here is what we call the complement, right? So it's 1 minus 22%, which is 78%. Now, we haven't answered the question yet, so let's just check what we're asked to do. Where's it gone? Okay. Was it more likely for an adult ticket sold to be an early bird ticket or a general admission ticket? So we need to just say that it's more likely to be a general admission ticket than an early bird ticket. In this question, that was all you were asked to do. You weren't asked to do a relative risk calculation, which is kind of, usually the pattern that you see. If you had been asked to do that, you'd take this probability and divide it by this one and say that you were, what's it going to be, 3 point something times as likely to have a general admission ticket than an early bird ticket. Okay, so that's that part of the question. Now, the next part, part D, is harder. That's excellent. And then there's a part E as well that I actually haven't put in here. They kind of go together, and I've done 13 minutes already. So I'll do a part 2 video on those later on today, depending on how long my dog stays asleep for, right? So that's the achieved and the merit stuff. What you could do if you're getting ready to do that harder part is just read through this part here, being really careful to understand that line in there. That makes this question straightforward. Thanks for watching, and if you've got any questions on this, just leave me a comment or send me an email.